Hey y'all, welcome back to another episode of Millennials in Charge, where we unpack the adult experience, one honest conversation at a time. I'm your host, Lex the Millennial, and today we're talking about something that can change not only your relationships, your mental health, but your quality of life. Yes, I'm talking about boundaries, because what you tolerate teaches people how to treat you, and protecting your peace starts with setting limits without feeling guilty. Let's dive in. I know many of us struggling with saying no and overextending ourselves and feeling guilty for prioritizing our well being. But a lack of boundaries can lead to burnout, resentment, and unhealthy relationships. Boundaries are a necessary aspect of life, especially when it comes to work, family, friendships, dating, and social media. It's important to realize that taking breaks from people, even your family and close friends, is okay. You don't have to be available to people 24/7. So today we're going to break down what boundaries actually are, why they're hard to set, and practical ways to enforce them. So boundaries are limits that define what you will and will not tolerate in different aspects of your life. So whether that's emotional, so protecting your feelings or your energy, physical, your personal space, your time, deciding how much you want to give that to others, your workspace, separating work from your personal life, and then financial, setting limits on sharing money and resources. I think we often struggle with setting boundaries because we have a fear of disappointing others. We feel like it's guilty or selfish, or sometimes those cultural and family expectations, those people pleasing tendencies, and the lack of role models who enforce boundaries. I know for me, I don't feel like I appropriately established boundaries until after I had my son. And that was eye-opening for me. I didn't realize how much of a lack of boundaries I had because I was very much so a people pleaser. Now, being a mother changed that for me. I could no longer people please. I had to please this child and and keep this child alive. So there was no appeasing to everyone else's feelings but my own. And one of the craziest things for me was my son was born like right after COVID. So right around the time he was born, they started to lift the COVID restrictions. So you didn't have to wear a mask and you could have people actually in the room when he was born. But because I had seen what COVID was, it was hard for me to just automatically go back to what it used to be. I didn't trust it. And so he was born at the end of the summer. So we were going to go and transition into that cold and flu season. And I set a boundary with my family and my friends that no one could kiss him. And let me tell y'all, that really, that sent everybody into a frenzy. No one understood it. And that was really a test on whether or not I was going to stand on my boundary. So I had to have a lot of awkward conversations, a lot of reminding people that they could not kiss him because I did not want him to get sick. Whew! I mean, from that experience, I can see why people struggle with boundaries, but also because I was the one who had to take care of him if he got sick, I was willing to ride behind that boundary because it gave me a peace of mind knowing that no one was kissing him but me and his father. And then that way, if he did get sick, it was our fault. I didn't have to blame somebody and, be all upset with everyone. So for me, that was just, it was tough, but I made it through. That experience also taught me that people will take boundaries and apply them as they see fit versus what you are asking, and they can sometimes take them to extremes. So how can you set boundaries without feeling like you're being mean? Honestly, boundaries aren't being mean. They're about self-respect. So boundaries as much as people fail to realize, boundaries are not about the other person. They're about you. They're about how you want to be treated, how you want to be handled. So the best thing with boundaries is being clear and direct. And that does not make you unkind. Although some people can't handle directness, that does not make you unkind. It makes you honest. And if you tell someone what you want, need, and expect, it's their choice to respect it or not. For example, if someone invites you somewhere and you know you just had a long week at work and you don't really want to go, all you got to do is say, I appreciate the invite. I need some time to rest. Maybe next time. Thank you, though. That's all you have to say. And that's fine. Like setting that boundary that you need rest and you need time to take for yourself, that's completely fine. There's nothing wrong with that. That's not mean or unkind. That's real. You need time to rest. Or you could go in this sleep deprived state and then you're no fun and now it's, oh, you were acting funny. But unless you set that clear boundary, say, hey, I need rest, I can't go. So how do we recognize when we need to set stronger boundaries or boundaries in general? If you feel emotionally drained after certain interactions, if you say yes out of guilt and not genuine desire, if you feel resentful and don't express your needs, you avoid certain people because they exhaust you, or if you feel overwhelmed with responsibilities that aren't even yours, you might need to set stronger boundaries or just boundaries in general. So what if you say, like, I have this friend who constantly asks me for favors and never reciprocates, and it makes me feel used and unappreciated. And I've set boundaries with them, but they just keep ignoring them. What should I do? When someone ignores your boundaries, that's a clear indication that they don't respect you. And you may need to try to reinforce those boundaries or possibly distance yourself from that relationship. I told you guys, I just recently learned to set boundaries and follow through on them, probably within the last 2.5 years. And one thing that was pivotal for me was reading Set Boundaries, Find Peace by Nidra Glover Schwab. She's a therapist and an expert, and she is amazing. Her book is amazing, and I highly recommend you read it. Like, in there, she defines what boundaries are. She defines the different types of boundaries. She talks about porous and rigid boundaries, and she just really gets down into it. And then she gives you examples at the end, which help, like, you kind of talk through yourself and realize, like, where you're missing those boundaries. So I definitely encourage you all to go get her book because for me, game changer. Definitely a game changer. That is Set Boundaries, Find Peace by Nidra Glover Schwab. Shout out to Nidra. So I know me telling you to set boundaries sounds cool and all, but what is like the practical way you could set boundaries for yourself and maintain those boundaries? So one way is to identify your limit. Realize what drains you or what makes you uncomfortable. 2, communicate clearly. Always be direct and firm. Don't over explain. We've all heard the saying, like, I don't owe you an explanation. That's what boundaries are. You don't owe people an explanation for your boundaries. You can give one because, again, to avoid that harshness, but don't over explain it. Say, this is what it is. Say, I want this boundary because of this. This makes me feel uncomfortable. Please do not do that. And that's it. You don't need to go on a 20-page thesis of why they need to respect that boundary. They just do. And again, you have to keep reinforcing. That leads me to number 3. Expect pushback. People are used to taking your kindness for weakness, and so they may resist. You have to stand firm. People are used to you saying yes, 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 yes. So when you say no, it can be off-putting. It's going to throw them off. So expect people to push back because, again, like I said in the beginning, what you tolerate teaches people how to treat you. So if you've been tolerating this and now you decide you don't want to tolerate it anymore, it's going to take some people back and they're going to be confused at first, but that's going to be expected when you start to set boundaries. Number 4, stay consistent. If you let one boundary slide, people will test the rest. So, you know the saying, give someone an inch, they'll take a mile. You have to be consistent. If the answer is no, you said no, you can't give in because, oh, it's fine, it's just this one time. That one time will cause that boundary to break down slowly but surely. Stay consistent. Remain consistent. Number 5, let go of the guilt. Prioritizing your well-being, your mental health, is not selfish. It's not selfish. It's necessary. So don't feel bad for saying no. Don't feel bad for learning to respect yourself. So how can you say no without over explaining? Right? Okay, you can say, I appreciate the invite, but I can't make it. You can say, I don't have the bandwidth right now. My social battery is low. That just doesn't work for me. And those are very clear and direct statements. And they can sound hard and harsh, but it's just the truth. And I think we have to be more transparent about what we're feeling and when things make us uncomfortable. I mean, I personally am guilty of it. I have felt uncomfortable with people saying stuff at work. And a lot of the times I might not say anything because I am still processing it. So, and I have a slick mouth. So, oftentimes I am silent before I actually react to things because I'm kind of processing what you're saying to me. And sometimes it doesn't click until after I walk away. You know, if you ever been like in a conversation or even a disagreement and someone says something to you and you walk away and you go, I should have said, that's kind of how that happens for me. So I oftentimes need to process. And I learned with boundaries, for me, I'm not quick to answer a question. If you say, hey, can we go to such and such next week? Or can you run me to do this or whatever it is? I don't answer right away. I literally will sit there. I will stare at you. And I might say, well, I need to check, my schedule. I need to check, with my husband, see what he's got going on, and I'll get back to you. And that is also another way and maybe a nicer way for you to just let people know, like, I don't have to answer you in real time. Just because you want an answer right now, I do not have to answer you. And for me, that has been golden. That has been absolutely golden to just take my time and process what someone said to me versus just responding before I've had a chance to think, because that's how you overbook yourself. Because you're just like, oh, sure, I'll help. Sure, I'll help. No, take that split second to say, let me check my schedule. I'm going to get back to you and let you know if I can. Because those little phrases can just change your life. I promise you. My life has been so much smoother. And oftentimes when you go back, and if you do have to say no, nobody's really upset because you're like, oh, I had to check. And then you go back and you check and you figure out like, no, you have 2 other things you already scheduled to do. And you say, you know what? I checked. I'm busy. I'm sorry. I can't help you. And I think by then they're already contemplating other options anyway. So they're not truly upset when you have now checked their schedule, thought about it, and realized that you can't help. So that's another way you can kind of lighten the blow, but also stand firm and direct in those boundaries. Please realize that boundaries don't make you lazy. They make you more productive and balanced. So if you say, I won't be responding to emails till 3 o'clock so I can recharge for the next day, then that's okay. That does not make you lazy. That makes you more productive because now you have that energy and fuel to actually do what you need to do and handle your business. So let's talk about some boundaries in dating. Why is it important to have boundaries in romantic relationships? So, for one, it protects your emotional well being, it ensures that your values and needs are respected, and it helps you avoid toxic, one sided relationships. Common boundary issues in dating can include feeling pressured to move faster than you're comfortable with, having a partner who disregards your needs or time, the expectation of constant availability via text or phone call, or having your feelings dismissed. Some examples of healthy boundaries in dating are I need time for myself outside of this relationship. I know women sometimes don't like when men need me time, but they do, and you do too. So that's okay. I'm not comfortable moving forward at this pace, or I don't like it when you speak to me that way. Let's talk when we're both calm. There's nothing wrong with letting people know how they made you feel, especially in a disagreement. There's nothing wrong with that. Now, if you tell someone you don't like the way they speak to you and you'd like to talk at a later time and they get ferociously upset, red flag. So let's talk about some of the red flags when you're dating. If you are trying to set boundaries in this newfound relationship or previously established relationship and they make you feel guilty for saying no, red flag. If they don't respect your time, your space, or your decisions, red flag. If they get angry when you ask for space, red flag. So just be mindful of those little things. It should be fine for you to take space if you need it. You should be able to tell someone no, especially someone you're dating, no, without it being an issue or an argument. Respecting your time or the fact that you need rest or whatever the case is should be okay. I know oftentimes in new relationships, you're in that honeymoon phase and you kind of want to be around each other all the time. But some people don't have that social battery for that. So they might be like, okay, I can spend 4 days out of the week with you, but the other 3 I need to myself. And that's okay. And y'all need to learn to respect boundaries. So what if someone you're dating keeps crossing those boundaries? If the person consistently ignores your boundaries, that's a major red flag. And you have to know that a healthy partner will respect your limits and not push against them. Because in a new relationship, they don't even know you to really push back. But again, what you tolerate teaches people how to treat you. So maybe in the beginning, those first few weeks, you were like, yes, 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 yes. And now you're starting to really get your bearings and come out of that euphoric state and say no. Pay attention to how they act when you say no. Pay attention to how they act when you can't give them all of your free time. Because sometimes in dating, I think we miss those red flags because we explain them away. We just go, oh, I would be upset too. Or, yeah, that makes sense. But honestly, no. If that is a boundary that you have, stand on it. Again, you have to be consistent with your boundaries. You have to stand firm and be direct. So if at any point this person continues to cross your boundaries, you just might want to reevaluate that situation. As I said before, boundaries can change your relationships, your mental health, and just every aspect in your life. Boundaries improve your life because people tend to respect you more when you respect yourself because they're only going to do what you allow them to do. Setting boundaries reduces resentment and passive aggressiveness. You don't have to say snarky things because you were direct with what you wanted or didn't want. So you don't have to kind of drop hints. Oftentimes, when we drop hints, we think people are picking them up. They're probably not. Those things that we sit with and might harp on when we leave a person, they probably are not thinking about it by the time you leave out the door. So just be direct about it. Don't try to be passive aggressive. Building those boundaries, putting them in place helps to build mutual respect and trust and understanding. Because now you feel seen, you feel heard, and someone is respecting the way you want to be treated. And that way you're not walking around burnt out. You're not walking around overextending yourself. You're not walking around mad because you've committed to so many things and you're so exhausted that you don't know what to do. So setting boundaries can really help improve your life. It definitely helps you to protect your peace. And I told y'all, I am all about protecting my peace. No amount of money is worth my peace. There are certain things I will not do to protect my peace. There are certain boundaries that I have in place to protect my peace, and that's okay. For example, I don't like people showing up at my house unannounced. I don't. Now, depending on how you were raised, some people don't see an issue with that. I personally, as a grown adult, do not like people popping up. The reason why is that I am very much so a hostess. I love hosting people. And, if it's a party, it's a good time. And I'm going to make sure everyone's comfortable and has a good time. Now, when I am not hosting, I don't want to feel like on just a regular day when I'm relaxing, maybe just lounging around the house that I have to entertain or host someone. And that doesn't mean that if you call me maybe 30 minutes before that you can't stop by. If you let me know, like, hey, do you mind if I stop by in 30 minutes or so? I can say yes or no. But just showing up at my doorstep, Lord help us all. My family knows this and they know better. Like they know better. They know that is a hill I'm willing to die on. And so they literally call me and be like, hey, do you mind if, and my sisters live 10 minutes from me and they work 10 minutes from me. And they be like, hey, you mind if I stop by? I'm like, sure thing. Because then I'm ready to receive them. If I'm not ready to receive them, I can come off as mean. And because I don't want to do that or ruin someone else's day, it's fine for me to say, please call before you come. So if you're like me and you need that kind of space, it's fine. Trust me, they'll get over it or they won't, but at least you won't feel like you got to put on your people face to entertain folks when you don't feel like it. And again, for me, have been a people pleaser a lot of my life, majority of my life, that is just one thing that protects my peace. And I stand on it because my home is my peace. When I come here, even when I have visitors and guests, like everyone's like, oh, I'm just so relaxed. We just chill. You can sleep, all of these things. And I love that. I like my house to be like a safe haven. So if I feel like it, I will. And if I don't, I won't. Having those boundaries and implementing those boundaries and standing on them, for me, I have more energy and less stress. I find myself having better self-esteem and confidence or like a greater sense of control over my life. And again, I can only worry about the things I can control. So if I can control asking someone to call me before they come, I'm going to do that. But literally, boundaries are so life-changing. I think once you start to establish them, you'll kind of wonder how you ever lived without them. Because I can't believe I walked around for nearly 30 years without boundaries, or at least boundaries that I stood on and I reaffirmed and I was very direct about. I don't know how I did that, because now I'm at a place where if it costs my peace, it costs too much. So I'm not risking that for anyone, family, friend, anyone. I'm not risking that because I don't have to. And that gives me that freedom to, again, deal with people accordingly when I can, how I can, when I want to. Boundaries are a beautiful thing. Such a beautiful thing. Literally. That book title, Set Boundaries, Find Peace, absolutely true. The best thing you could ever do for yourself is set boundaries with people. Even your mama. And it's funny, I've had to have conversations with my mom. And I'm nice about it. I'm not as cut and dry. I do explain it to her a little bit more. I don't over explain, but I do like give a little context, like, hey mom, this is this and I like this. Like, my mom was one of those people, she didn't like the whole they couldn't kiss my baby, but she respected that boundary. She listened to it. The whole kissing the baby thing is similar to the you wash your hands before you touch a new baby. Like, you don't just walk in somebody's house from outside and touch their newborn. You got to wash your hands because you're bringing in outside germs. So that was the same thing for me. And it's okay for me to tell you to wash your hands. It's okay for me to tell you not to kiss my baby. So it was hard, but it wasn't that awkward. Me and my mom were pretty close. So it's not too bad for me to let her know like my boundaries. And she respects them and she sees them. And, I think even for her, learning to set boundaries in her own life is helpful. It's helpful to see someone do it and realize, like, oh, it's not that bad. And then, oh, well, she peaceful. And I'm like, exactly. I am peaceful because I'm not going to just sit here and continue to people please. I always tell people my son is the main reason why I got boundaries. And he is the one person who made me stand 10 toes down on those boundaries. I'm like, listen, either you say something to people and protect him, or you just be a pushover and he gets sick and now you in the hospital trying to figure out why your baby got RSV. So I chose to stand 10 toes down and again get the looks and get talked about and all the things just so I could protect my child. And that's okay. That's okay. So when your family or your friends, they don't understand when you start setting those boundaries, that's okay. Don't worry, they'll just. At first, it's gonna be hard. It's gonna be tough. That pushback will come. But baby, let me tell you. Let me tell you. Don't worry about it. They'll adjust or they won't. And that'll be a different conversation. But 9 times out of 10, if they do want to be in your life, they will adjust. Or you'll have to handle them accordingly. And I have family members and friends that I've had to do that to. I've had to change the way I handle them because they didn't know how to handle me. So set those boundaries, y'all. Set those boundaries. I want to leave you with this. Boundaries are not about pushing people away. I'm going to say that again. Boundaries are not about pushing people away. They are about protecting your peace and building healthy relationships. As you set boundaries, you might realize that some of those relationships you thought were healthy may not be. And that's okay. That is what therapy is for, but also that is what setting those boundaries can teach you, and you guys can work on those things if they are willing to work. But we're at a point where life is too short than to be anything but happy, to be anything but respected, and to have anybody mistreat you. Set those boundaries. reinforce those boundaries. And they will adjust because it's not worth your peace. So this week, I challenge you to set one new boundary, whether it's saying no, whether it's setting limits at work, or whether it's explaining or asserting your needs in a relationship. That can be family, friendship, romantic. I challenge you to set one boundary this week. You can tag me at Lex the Millennial or Millennials in Charge and just let me know what was that one boundary that you set this week. Use the hashtag setting boundaries and just let me know. You can even tell me one area where you feel like you need stronger boundaries. Let's talk about it. You can DM me, comment, whatever. Just let me know because I understand the struggle, y'all. I'm not that far into setting boundaries, but I understand the struggle and I think I've gotten good at it in this short amount of time. So let me know what y'all need because I'm here for y'all. As always, thanks for tuning in to Millennials in Charge. If this episode helped you in any way, don't forget to subscribe, rate, review, and share this episode for someone who needs to hear it. If you're having trouble explaining boundaries to someone, if you kind of just want to get that point across so that they can understand it a little bit better, share the episode with them. If someone has shared this episode with you, don't take offense to it. Just realize that they might not know the exact way that they can communicate with you to get their boundaries across clearly. And this is one way that they're trying. So please give them grace. Let's keep unpacking this wild, crazy ride of adulting together. I'll see y'all next time. Don't forget to catch Millennials in Charge every Wednesday at 6 a.m. Eastern. You can tune in on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, Amazon, or wherever you get your podcasts. See y'all next week.